The lion's breath was hot on my face. I could smell it, raw, wild, carnivorous. Its mane, matted and golden in the Borno State sun, brushed against my trembling arm. 10 feet of pure muscle and predator instinct stood between me and the Boko Haram fighters who'd been hunting me for 6 hours through the Nigerian scrubland. This was impossible. Wild lions don't protect humans. They eat them. Every nature documentary I'd ever seen, every wildlife story whispered around campfires in my village, they all said the same thing: if you meet a lion in the wild, you're already dead. But this lion wasn't looking at me. It was staring at Commander Musa and his 7 fighters, all armed with AK-47s, all frozen in shock 30 meters away. The lion's tail swished once, lazy, confident, and then it roared. The sound didn't just fill the air. It shook it. I felt it in my chest, in my bones, in the desert sand beneath my bare feet. The fighters stumbled backward. One dropped his gun. Commander Musa, the man who'd personally burned 13 churches in Yobe State, the man whose machete had ended my father's life 3 weeks earlier, lowered his weapon. What is this? His voice cracked. What demon magic? The lion roared again. Louder. A sound that said, "You will not touch her." And for 3 days, it didn't. 3 days that lion stayed with me. 3 days it guarded me like I was its cub. 3 days the entire village of Bama witnessed something that should only exist in Bible stories, in the book of Daniel, in ancient testimonies of faith, in miracles we've been taught to believe happened then but not now. I'm here to tell you, miracles didn't stop with the Bible. I know because I lived one. My name is Hadiza. I'm 19 years old. I live in a displaced persons camp outside Maiduguri, Nigeria, with 40,000 other refugees who fled Boko Haram's killing machine. I have nothing, no family, no home, no possessions except the clothes on my back and this Bible someone gave me after I crossed into safety. But I have a story. A story that 57 people witnessed. A story that made 4 Boko Haram fighters abandon their weapons and surrender to Nigerian soldiers. A story that proved to me, and to everyone who saw it, that Jesus Christ is not a distant God who stopped doing miracles 2,000 years ago. He's alive. He's active. And he's still in the business of doing the impossible. Let me take you back to where this started. To the morning everything I knew turned to ash and blood. It was April 2023. Dry season in northeast Nigeria. The kind of heat that makes your skin feel like it's cooking from the inside out, where the red dust coats your throat and every breath tastes like sand and desperation. Our village, Kumsh, was small. Maybe 400 people. Mostly Kanuri farmers and their families. We had a mosque, a market square, a few scattered Christian families who kept to themselves but caused no trouble. My father was the village mechanic. He could fix anything: generators, motorcycles, even the old water pump that kept our community alive during the worst droughts. I was Muslim. Born Muslim. Prayed 5 times a day, fasted during Ramadan, wore my hijab, memorized Quran verses my grandmother taught me before she died. I wasn't radical. I wasn't even particularly devout. I was just normal. A girl trying to finish secondary school, dreaming about university in Maiduguri, maybe becoming a teacher someday. I didn't know that on April 17, 2023, Commander Musa had marked our village on his map. I didn't know that in his twisted interpretation of jihad, My father's kindness to Christian neighbors was apostasy worthy of death. I didn't know that at 4:47 a.m. the next morning, I would wake up to the sound of gunfire and my mother's screaming. The attack came fast. They always do. Boko Haram doesn't give warnings. They don't negotiate. They don't show mercy. They arrive in Toyota Hilux trucks with mounted machine guns, faces wrapped in black cloth, shouting Allahu Akbar while they murder everyone who doesn't meet their definition of true Muslim. I heard the motorcycles first, dozens of them, engines screaming through the pre-dawn darkness. Then the gunfire. Sharp cracks that split the air like 1,000 whips, each one a life ending, a family destroyed, a future erased. My father shook me awake. His eyes were wild with terror. Hadiza, run. Take your sister. Run to the bush. Now. Baba, what? Go. I grabbed my 11-year-old sister Aisha's hand and ran. No shoes. No water. No plan. Just blind, animal panic driving us toward the scrubland beyond our compound. Behind us, our home exploded in flames. The smell hit me first, burning thatch, melting plastic, something else I couldn't name then but understand now. Burning flesh. Burning bodies. Burning people. We ran for maybe 2 minutes before I heard my mother scream. Not a scream of fear. A scream of ending. A sound that would replay in my nightmares for months. Aisha stopped, tried to turn back. I yanked her forward so hard she fell. We can't, we have to. If we go back, we die. I was sobbing, dragging her through thorn bushes that tore our skin, stumbling over rocks that cut our feet. Mama wanted us to live, so we live. By the time the sun rose, Kumsh was gone. Erased. Turned into black smoke and ashen bodies. Aisha and I hid in a dried-up riverbed for 6 hours, listening to the motorcycles circling, the gunfire sporadically cracking, the victory chants of men who believed they were serving God by slaughtering their neighbors. When silence finally came, we crept back toward what used to be home. My father's body was in the street. Machete wounds. Too many to count. My mother. I couldn't find her. Just her hijab, torn and bloody, discarded near the mosque they'd burned. 17 Christians had been beheaded in the market square, their heads arranged in a grotesque row, a warning to anyone who dared befriend Kafirs. 3 of them I'd known since childhood. One was my father's apprentice, a gentle boy named Emmanuel who used to fix my bicycle chain for free. The entire village, destroyed. In less than 3 hours. Aisha was in shock. Wouldn't speak. Just stared with empty eyes at the ruins of everything we'd ever known. I was 19. Orphaned. Responsible for an 11-year-old in a war zone where girls our age are kidnapped, sold, forced into marriage with fighters old enough to be our grandfathers. I did what any Muslim girl would do. I prayed. Allah, help us. Protect us. Show us the way. Nothing. Just silence and smoke and the distant sound of vultures gathering. But I didn't know yet, I was praying to the wrong name. I didn't know that in 6 days, I would cry out to Jesus for the first time in my life. And I didn't know that when I did, heaven would send a lion to answer. Commander Musa wasn't born evil. I learned this later, from a fighter who defected after witnessing what the lion did. Musa was once a schoolteacher in Maiduguri. He taught mathematics. He had a wife, 3 daughters. He was, by all accounts, a gentle man who loved poetry and never raised his voice. Then the Nigerian military killed his family in a botched raid on a suspected Boko Haram hideout. Wrong intelligence. Wrong house. His wife and daughters, ages 4, 7, and 9, were inside when the building was shelled. Grief broke him. Rage rebuilt him into something else entirely. By the time he joined Boko Haram in 2019, the gentle math teacher was dead. In his place stood a commander who believed the only path to paradise was paved with the blood of apostates, Muslims who cooperated with Christians, who sent their daughters to Western schools, who didn't enforce strict Sharia law. My father's crime? He'd repaired a generator for a Christian pastor. Free of charge. That was enough. In Musa's theology, my father was a traitor to Islam. And traitors, along with their entire families, had to be eliminated. I didn't know any of this as Aisha and I huddled in the ruins of Qamsh, trying to decide what to do next. I just knew that the fighters were still out there, combing the surrounding areas for survivors. I could hear their motorcycles in the distance, engines growling like mechanical predators. We have to get to Bama, I whispered to Aisha. She hadn't spoken since we'd found Baba's body. Her eyes were glazed, distant. Shock had wrapped around her like a shroud. Bama has soldiers. Nigerian army. We'll be safe there. Bama was 18 kilometers away. In the dry season heat. With no water. No shoes. And Boko Haram patrols between us and safety. But what choice did we have? We waited until dusk, when the orange sun turned the smoke-filled sky into something that looked like the end of the world, and started walking. We moved through the scrubland, avoiding roads, staying low in the dry grass that cut our legs with every step. My feet were bleeding before we'd gone 2 kilometers. Aisha was limping. The temperature was dropping fast. Desert nights in Borno State are brutally cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes you wonder if you'll see morning. We had no food. No water. No plan beyond, walk toward Bama and pray we don't die. I kept praying to Allah. Please, protect us. Guide us. We are faithful. We pray. We fast. Please. The words felt hollow. Like I was shouting into an empty room. But I didn't know what else to do. We made it maybe 8 kilometers before they found us. It was the second night. We'd hidden during the day in an abandoned cattle shelter, too terrified to move while the sun was up and we could be spotted. Aisha had finally fallen asleep, exhausted, traumatized, her body shutting down to escape the horror. I was keeping watch when I heard the motorcycle. Just one. Single headlight cutting through the darkness, moving slowly along the dirt path about 200 meters from where we hid. My heart stopped. The motorcycle stopped too. The engine cut off. In the sudden silence, I could hear everything, my own panicked breathing, Aisha's soft whimpering in her sleep, the crunch of boots on dry earth moving toward our shelter. I know you're here. The voice was calm. Almost gentle. That made it worse somehow. I can smell your fear. I can hear your breathing. Come out, and I promise I'll make it quick. Hide, and, well, you don't want to know what happens if you make me come in there. I recognized the voice. Commander Musa. I'd seen him before. He'd come to Qamsh 6 months earlier, recruiting young men, preaching his violent version of Islam in the market square. My father had argued with him. Told him to leave our village alone. I should have stayed hidden. Should have been silent. But rage, pure, burning rage, overrode my survival instinct. I stood up. Stepped out of the shelter into the moonlight. You killed my father. My voice shook, but I didn't care. He was a good Muslim. He prayed. He fasted. He helped people. And you murdered him because he showed kindness to a Christian? Musa tilted his head, studying me like I was an interesting insect. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with a neatly trimmed beard and calm, intelligent eyes. He didn't look like a monster. That's what terrified me most. Your father, he said slowly, was an apostate. Islam is not about kindness to kafirs. It's about submission to Allah's law. Your father chose his side. Now you must choose yours. He stepped closer. I could see his hand resting on the pistol at his belt. You're young. Pretty. You could be useful. Marry one of my fighters. Give him sons who will grow up to be true mujahideen. Or, he shrugged. I can end it here. Quickly. Painlessly. Your choice. Behind me, Aisha woke up. I heard her small gasp of terror. Run, I whispered without turning around. Aisha, run. Don't, Musa started. But Aisha ran. 11 years old, barefoot, traumatized, she bolted into the darkness like a hunted animal. Musa pulled his gun, aimed at her retreating shadow. I lunged. Crashed into him. We went down in a tangle of limbs and dust, and his gun fired, once, twice, bullets disappearing into the night sky. You stupid girl, he backhanded me so hard I tasted blood. Stars exploded across my vision. He shoved me off him, stood, brushed dust from his clothes. Now you've made me angry. He pulled a radio from his belt. Spoke calmly into it. This is Musa. I need 3 units. Grid reference, he rattled off coordinates. 2 girls. Teenagers. 1 running east. Find them. Bring them alive. I want to make an example. He looked down at me, sprawled in the dirt, blood dripping from my split lip. You just signed your sister's death warrant. I was going to let her go. Children are innocent, even children of apostates. But now? He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Now she'll watch you die. Slowly. And then she'll be given to my fighters. All of them. Until there's nothing left of her but screaming. He keyed the radio again. And bring fuel. We're burning this one alive. I want it recorded. Post it online. Show what happens to families who betray Islam. I don't remember making the decision to run. One moment I was on the ground, blood in my mouth, accepting my death. The next, my legs were moving, pumping, driving, carrying me away from Musa's shouts and into the scrubland. I heard motorcycles roaring to life. Multiple engines. The hunt was on. I ran like I'd never run before. Thorns tore my clothes, my skin. Rocks cut my feet. I didn't feel any of it. I was pure adrenaline and terror and desperate, animal survival instinct. Behind me, headlights swept the darkness. Engines roared. Men shouted coordinates to each other. She's heading northeast. Cut her off at the dried riverbed. Don't shoot her, Commander wants her alive. I ran for maybe 20 minutes. Maybe an hour. Time stopped meaning anything. There was only run, breathe, don't fall, don't stop, run, run, run. And then my foot caught on something, a root, a rock, my own exhaustion, and I went down hard. The impact knocked the air from my lungs. I lay there, gasping, spots dancing across my vision, chest heaving. The motorcycles were getting closer. I could see their headlights now, sweeping back and forth like searchlights, tightening the net. I tried to stand. My leg buckled. Sprained ankle, maybe broken. Pain shot through me like lightning. I was done. Finished. Caught. I dragged myself behind a termite mound, useless cover, but the only thing available, and tried to think. Tried to plan. Tried to find some way out of this that didn't end with me screaming in a video that would be posted online as propaganda. Nothing came. No brilliant escape plan. No hidden reserve of strength. Just acceptance. This is how I die. The motorcycles were maybe 100 meters away now. I could hear individual voices. Fan out, she's close. Check behind those rocks. She's injured, blood trail leads this way. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in my life, I prayed something other than the prayers I'd been taught since childhood. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who else to call. So I whispered the name I'd heard Christians use. The name my father's apprentice Emmanuel used to say with such love and certainty before Boko Haram beheaded him. Jesus. It felt strange on my tongue. Foreign. Maybe forbidden. Jesus, if you're real, if you actually died for people like me. I need help. I need a miracle. Please. I'm not asking Allah anymore because He doesn't hear me. But maybe you do. Maybe you care about a Muslim girl nobody wants. Please. Help me. Save me. Or just let it be quick. I opened my eyes. The motorcycles were 50 meters away. I took a breath. Prepared to stand. Prepared to face whatever came next with whatever dignity I had left. And then I heard it. A sound that didn't belong. A sound that froze every fighter in their tracks. A sound that made my blood turn to ice and liquid fire simultaneously. A roar. Deep. Primal. Ancient. The roar of a lion. In northeastern Nigeria. Where lions haven't been seen in the wild for over 40 years. The roar came again, closer this time, and every motorcycle engine cut off simultaneously. In the sudden silence, I heard Commander Musa's voice, no longer calm, no longer in control. What is that? I need to take you back a bit further. Because the truth is, my faith in Allah had been dying long before Commander Musa hunted me through the scrubland. Long before the lion appeared. long before I whispered Jesus' name for the first time. It had been dying slowly, quietly, for 3 years. Since the day Boko Haram kidnapped my best friend. Her name was Zainab. We were 14 when they took her. She was walking home from school, just 500 meters from her compound, when the motorcycles surrounded her. 3 men. They threw a bag over her head, tossed her on the back of a bike, and disappeared into the Sambisa forest. We never saw her again. Her father went to the mosque, begged the imam to pray for her return. The imam said, "Inshallah. If Allah wills it, she will return. If not, it is His will." Her mother prayed 5 times a day for 6 months. She wept prostrate on her prayer mat. She fasted beyond Ramadan. She gave away everything she owned as charity, believing Allah would honor her sacrifice and bring Zainab home. Nothing happened. 2 years later, a girl who escaped from Boko Haram's camps told us Zainab had been married to a commander. She was 15. He was 47. She died giving birth to his child. Both mother and baby, gone. Zainab's mother stopped praying after that. Stopped eating. Stopped speaking. She died 3 months later. The doctors said it was malaria. But I knew the truth. She died of a broken heart. She died because she'd prayed to Allah with everything she had, and Allah had been silent. I was 17 when that happened. And something inside me began to crack. I didn't stop being Muslim. You don't just stop being Muslim when you're born into it, when it's woven into every part of your identity, your family, your community. To stop would be to cut yourself off from everything you've ever known. But I stopped believing Allah cared. I performed the rituals. I said the prayers. I fasted during Ramadan. But inside, I was screaming into a void. Why do you let this happen? Why do you allow men to rape girls in your name? Why do you stay silent when mothers weep for their stolen daughters? No answer ever came. After Qamsh was destroyed, after my parents were murdered, after Aisha and I began our desperate flight toward Bama, those 3 years of doubt came crashing down on me with brutal clarity. The first night in the scrubland, I prayed. Out of habit. Out of desperation. Allah, you are most merciful, most compassionate. Please protect us. Guide us to safety. We are your servants. Please. The words tasted like ash. The second night, I prayed again. But this time, I felt something I'd never allowed myself to feel before, anger. We've been faithful. My father was a good man. He prayed. He helped people. And you let them slaughter him like an animal. Why? What did we do to deserve this? Silence. Just the cold desert wind and Aisha's quiet sobbing. By the third night, the night before Commander Musa found us, I'd stopped praying altogether. What was the point? I'd watched Allah ignore Zainab's mother's prayers. I'd watched him ignore my own prayers for protection, for guidance, for mercy. I'd watched him stand by while men who claimed to serve him murdered, raped, and destroyed in his name. Either Allah didn't exist, or he didn't care. Either way, I was on my own. That realization was more terrifying than the Boko Haram fighters hunting us. Because if there was no God, or if God was silent, then the universe was just chaos. Random violence. Meaningless suffering. And we were nothing but animals waiting to be slaughtered. I stared up at the stars that night, tears streaming down my face. If anyone is up there, if anyone cares, we're dying down here. We're alone. We're hunted. And I don't know what to do anymore. No voice answered. No sign appeared. No miracle descended. Just emptiness. Here's what I didn't know then. Sometimes the silence isn't because God doesn't care. Sometimes it's because we're calling the wrong name. But I wouldn't learn that until I was lying behind a termite mound with a broken ankle, 7 Boko Haram fighters closing in, and no options left except to die. After Musa found us that night, after Aisha ran and I attacked him and barely escaped, I spent 6 hours hiding in a dried-up well. I'd fallen into it while running blind through the darkness. One moment the ground was beneath my feet, the next, I was tumbling down a narrow stone shaft. I hit the bottom hard, maybe 4 meters down, landing in a painful heap on centuries-old mud and bones. Animal bones, I hoped. I didn't look too closely. Above me, I could hear the motorcycles. The shouts. The search parties spreading out in all directions. She can't have gone far, she's injured. Check every hole, every shelter, every tree. Commander wants her alive, remember that. I pressed myself against the wall of the well, trying to make myself invisible, trying not to breathe too loud, trying not to exist. Hours passed. The voices faded. The motorcycles moved on. But I stayed in that well, too terrified to move, too exhausted to climb out. Dawn came. Light filtered down through the narrow opening above me, turning my prison into a tube of pale gray. I was thirsty. So thirsty. My tongue felt like leather. My lips were cracked and bleeding. I'd had maybe a cup of water in 3 days. I tried to climb out. Made it halfway up before my sprained ankle betrayed me and I fell back down. The impact knocked the air from my lungs. I lay there gasping, crying, defeated. Allah, the word came out automatically. A reflex. Please, help me. Nothing. Please. I screamed at this time, not caring if anyone heard. I'm dying down here. Do something. Anything. Just. Help me. My voice echoed off the stone walls. And then, silence. Cold, absolute, crushing silence. That's when I knew. Allah wasn't listening. He'd never been listening. Not to Zainab's mother. Not to my father. Not to me. We were alone. I curled into a ball at the bottom of that well and sobbed. Not quiet tears. Full body, soul-destroying sobs that came from the deepest part of me. I cried for my parents. For Aisha, who was probably dead or captured by now. For Zainab. For every prayer that had gone unanswered. For every girl stolen in the night. For every burned village and beheaded Christian and mutilated body. I cried until I had nothing left. And then I just sat there. In the darkness. Waiting to die. I don't know how long I was in that well. Time stopped meaning anything. Thirst turned to delirium. My thoughts became fragmented, confused. I hallucinated my mother. She stood at the top of the well, smiling down at me. Come up, Hadiza. Come home. I can't, Mama. I'm too tired. Then rest, my daughter. Just rest. I thought that was it. I thought I was dying. And honestly, I was ready. Death seemed kinder than continuing to live in a world this broken. But then I heard something. A real sound, not a hallucination. Voices. Speaking a language I didn't know. I looked up. Two faces appeared at the top of the well, blocking the sun. Men. But not Boko Haram fighters, these men wore different clothes. Cleaner. They carried no weapons. One of them said something in English. I understood a little, school had taught me basics. Down there, alive, get rope. They pulled me out. I was too weak to resist, too confused to understand what was happening. They were aid workers. Christians. From an international NGO working with displaced persons. They'd been doing rounds, checking abandoned villages for survivors. They gave me water. Not too much, they said too much too fast would make me sick. They bandaged my ankle. Wrapped me in a blanket. Spoke to me in gentle tones I barely processed. One of them, a Nigerian man named Samuel, spoke Kanuri. My language. What's your name? Hadiza. My voice was a croak. Hadiza, you're safe now. We're taking you to the IDP camp in Maiduguri. You'll have food, water, shelter. Medical care. You're safe. My sister, I whispered. Aisha. 11. She ran. I don't know. We'll look for her. I promise. But first, we need to get you help. They carried me to their truck. I remember the rumble of the engine. The blessed relief of shade. The slow realization that I wasn't going to die. Not yet, anyway. The IDP camp was chaos. Thousands of people crammed into rows of tents and makeshift shelters. Women who'd lost husbands. Children who'd lost parents. Old men who'd watched their villages burn. Everyone wearing the same haunted expression, the look of people who'd survived but weren't sure they wanted to. They gave me a tent space with 3 other women. All widows. All Muslims. All refugees from Boko Haram violence. One of them, Halima, was maybe 40. She'd lost her husband and 4 sons in an attack on Baga. She prayed constantly. 5 times a day, every day, prostrating herself on a thin mat, whispering prayers with desperate intensity. I watched her for 3 days. Watched her pray. Watched her weep. Watched her beg Allah for answers, for peace, for some kind of meaning in the suffering. And I watched Allah stay silent. On the 4th day, I asked her, "Do you really think he's listening?" She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. He must be. If he's not, she trailed off. If he's not, then what's the point of any of this? But I couldn't move. Something about that song held me frozen. A man stood up. Not Nigerian, white skin, maybe European. He spoke in English, and a Nigerian woman translated into Hausa and Kanuri. "Friends," he said, "we have lost much. our homes, our families, everything we knew. And I won't stand here and tell you God wanted this to happen. I won't tell you this was His will. Evil is evil. What Boko Haram does is evil. And God weeps with us over it. I felt something crack inside my chest. But I will tell you this, he continued. There is one who knows what it's like to suffer. Who knows what it's like to be hunted, betrayed, abandoned by everyone. Who knows what it's like to cry out to heaven and hear silence. His name is Jesus. And He didn't just watch our suffering from a distance. He entered it. He became one of us. He felt our pain. And then He defeated it. Not by escaping suffering, but by going through it and coming out alive on the other side. The translator's voice was steady, but her eyes were wet with tears. If you're here today and you're broken, Jesus knows. If you're angry at God, Jesus understands. If you feel abandoned, Jesus has been there. And He's here now. Not with easy answers. Not with quick fixes. But with presence. With love. With His nail-scarred hands reaching toward you, saying, I see you. I know you. And I will never, ever leave you. Something inside me shattered. I don't know why. I'd heard Christian preaching before. I'd always dismissed it as foolishness, as Western colonialism wrapped in religious language. But this was different. This man wasn't preaching at us. He was speaking with us. From inside the suffering. And the things he was saying about Jesus, they sounded nothing like the distant, silent Allah I'd been praying to all my life. This Jesus had scars. This Jesus had suffered. This Jesus knew what it felt like to be me. Before I realized what I was doing, I was crying. Not quiet tears. Huge, body-shaking sobs that I couldn't control. A woman approached me. Nigerian. Maybe 50 years old. Her hijab was pushed back. She was clearly former Muslim, like me. She said something in Kanuri. It's okay, daughter. Let it out. He can handle your tears. I don't. I'm not. I'm Muslim, I choked out. So was I, she said gently. So were many of us. But Jesus doesn't care what you were. He only cares what you need. And right now, you need Him. Don't you? I nodded. I couldn't speak. I could only cry. She put her arm around me. Would you like to pray with me? I don't know how, I whispered. I don't know how to pray to Him. There's no special formula. Just talk to Him. Like He's right here. Because He is. That night, alone in my tent while Halima slept, I tried. It felt wrong. Forbidden. Dangerous. I'd been taught my entire life that Christians worshipped three gods, that they'd corrupted the truth, that Jesus was just a prophet, not divine, not God, certainly not someone to pray to. But I was desperate. And desperation makes you willing to try anything. I sat on my mat in the darkness and whispered, Jesus. I don't know if you're real. I don't know if you care about Muslim girls. I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk to you. But that man said you understand suffering. That you've been where I am. And if that's true, if you really know what this feels like. I need help. I'm drowning. I've lost everything. And I don't know how to keep living. So if you're there, if you're listening, please. Show me something. Anything. Just, don't let me be alone. Nothing dramatic happened. No vision. No voice from heaven. No overwhelming emotion. But something shifted. Some weight I'd been carrying, not all of it, but just enough, lifted. I fell asleep for the first time in 6 days without nightmares. The next morning, Samuel found me. Hadiza, he said carefully, we've received information. A girl matching Aisha's description was seen 2 days ago near Bama. With a group of other kidnapped girls. They're being moved, probably to Sambisa Forest. My heart stopped. She's alive? Maybe. We can't confirm. But, if you want to try to find her, we have contacts. Former Boko Haram members who defected. They know the routes, the camps. It's dangerous. Extremely dangerous. But it's possible. I'll go, I said immediately. Tell me where. He hesitated. Hadiza, if you go, you might not come back. These are active war zones. Boko Haram kill anyone who interferes with their operations. I don't care. She's my sister. I have to try. Samuel studied my face for a long moment. Then he nodded. Okay. I'll make arrangements. But Hadiza, pray. Pray like your life depends on it. Because it does. I will, I said. And I meant it. For the first time in my life, I meant it. That night, I prayed to Jesus again. Longer this time. More honestly. Jesus, I'm going to look for my sister. I'm probably going to die. But if you're real, if you really care, please come with me. I can't do this alone. I'm too weak. Too scared. Too broken. But if you're as powerful as they say, if you really defeated death, then maybe you can help me find her. Maybe you can protect us. I don't know. I'm asking. Pleading. Begging. Please. Don't let me go alone. I left the camp 3 days later with a former Boko Haram fighter named Ibrahim who defected and converted to Christianity. He knew the territory. Knew the patrol routes. Knew where the kidnapped girls were usually held. He gave me one piece of advice before we set out: if we're caught, they'll kill us. Slowly. But before you die, pray to Jesus. Not to Allah. Jesus. Because I've seen what he can do in impossible situations. And trust me, you're going to need impossible. We traveled for 2 days. Avoiding roads. Moving at night. Sleeping in abandoned buildings during the day. On the 3rd day, Ibrahim's contact, a teenager who'd escaped Boko Haram 3 months earlier, told us where the girls were being held. But Commander Musa is there, the boy warned. He's in charge of that camp. And he's the worst of them. He doesn't just kill. He makes you wish for death first. My blood turned to ice. Musa. The man who'd murdered my father. who'd hunted me through the scrubland, who'd sworn to burn me alive. Ibrahim looked at me. We can turn back. Find another way. This is too dangerous. I thought about Aisha. 11 years old. Alone. Terrified. Probably praying for someone to rescue her. No, I said. We go forward. That night, we moved toward the camp. We got within 200 meters before we were spotted. Gunfire erupted. Ibrahim grabbed my hand. Run. We ran. But there were too many of them. They cut us off, surrounded us, drove us away from each other. I found myself alone again. Injured again. Hunted again. And this time, there was no well to hide in. No aid workers to rescue me. No escape route. Just Commander Moose's voice echoing through the darkness. I told you I'd find you again, Hadiza. And this time, you won't escape. This time, I'm going to make you an example that will be remembered for years. I collapsed behind a termite mound. Broken ankle. No weapon. No hope. The motorcycles circled. 7 fighters. All armed. All closing in. And that's when I remembered Ibrahim's words, pray to Jesus. You're going to need impossible. So I did. Jesus, I whispered, tears streaming down my face, I tried. I tried to find my sister. I tried to be brave. But I can't do this. I'm going to die here. And unless you do something impossible, this is the end. So please. If you're real. If you care. If you have any power at all, help me. Save me. Please. I'm yours. I'm completely yours. Just, please, don't let me die like this. I opened my eyes. The fighters were 50 meters away. And then I heard it. The roar. Deep. Ancient. Impossible. The roar of a lion that shouldn't exist. The roar came again. Closer this time. So close I felt it vibrate in my chest, in my bones, in the ground beneath me. Every motorcycle engine cut off simultaneously. The sudden silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breathing and the low, rumbling growl that followed the roar. What was that? One of the fighters' voices cracked with fear. Lion, another said. But that's impossible. There are no lions in Borno State. Haven't been for decades. I know what I heard. The first fighter snapped. That was a lion. Commander Moose's voice cut through the confusion, sharp and commanding. There are no lions. It's a trick. Sound equipment. The Christians use these tactics to frighten us. Spread out. Find the girl. Now. But I heard the uncertainty in his voice. The fear he was trying to mask with authority. The growl came again. Lower. Deeper. Not from speakers. From something alive, something huge, something present. I pressed myself against the termite mound, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if I should be more terrified of the militants or of whatever animal was out there in the darkness. All I knew was that 30 seconds ago, I'd prayed to Jesus for the impossible. And now something impossible was happening. The fighters remounted their motorcycles. Engines roared back to life. Headlights swept across the scrubland, illuminating patches of dry grass, scattered rocks, thorn bushes. And then one headlight caught it. Two eyes. Gleaming. Amber gold. Reflecting the light like twin flames. The motorcycle stopped so abruptly the fighter nearly flew over the handlebars. "Commander," his voice was barely a whisper. "Commander, there's something." The other headlights swung toward where he was pointing. And there, stepping out of the darkness like something from a dream, from a nightmare, from the pages of ancient scripture, was a lion. A male. Massive. His mane was thick and dark, almost black in the artificial light. His body was pure muscle, easily 200 kilograms of predator. His tail swished once, lazy and confident. And his eyes were fixed directly on the fighters. "Allahu Akbar," someone whispered. Not in triumph. In terror. The lion took another step forward. His paws made no sound on the sand. He moved like liquid shadow, like death made flesh, like judgment walking on four legs. "Shoot it!" Musa screamed. "Shoot it now!" 3 fighters raised their AK-47s. Gunfire shattered the night, sharp cracks, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness. I saw the bullets hit. I saw them. 3 direct hits to the lion's chest and shoulder. The lion didn't flinch. Didn't stumble. Didn't even slow down. He just kept walking. Toward the fighters. His eyes never leaving them. How? One fighter fired again. Point-blank range. The bullet should have dropped the animal instantly. The lion roared. The sound was beyond description. It wasn't just loud, it was primal. The kind of sound that activates every ancient fear coded into human DNA. The sound that says, "I am apex predator and you are prey." 2 fighters dropped their weapons and ran. Just turned and sprinted into the darkness, abandoning their motorcycles, abandoning their commander, abandoning everything except their desperate need to get away. The lion watched them go. Didn't pursue. Just let them run. Then he turned his attention back to the remaining 5 fighters. And started walking again. Directly toward them. "This is Shaitan." One fighter was crying. Actually crying. "This is demon magic. We need to leave. Commander, we need to leave. We don't run from Kafir tricks." Musa snarled. But even he was backing away, his hand shaking on his pistol. "It's just an animal. It can be killed. Then you kill it." The fighter shouted back. And then he too ran. Now there were 3. Commander Musa and 2 others, trapped between their pride and their terror. The lion was maybe 20 meters away now. His eyes never blinked. Never wavered. And then, I still don't know why I did this, I stood up. Every survival instinct I possessed screamed at me to stay hidden, to stay small, to not draw the attention of a 200-kilogram carnivore that had just shrugged off bullets like they were raindrops. But something deeper than instinct moved me. Something that whispered, "Stand. Watch. This is for you." I stood. My broken ankle screamed in protest. I swayed, nearly fell, caught myself against the termite mound. The lion's head turned. Those amber eyes locked onto mine. I stopped breathing. For 3 seconds, maybe 5, we stared at each other. Predator and prey. Hunter and hunted. Except I didn't feel like prey. I felt. I don't know how to explain it. I felt seen. Known. Recognized. And then the lion did something impossible. He bowed his head. Just slightly. Just enough. And turned away from me. Turned back toward the fighters. And positioned himself directly between us. What? I couldn't form words. Couldn't process what I was seeing. What is? Commander Musa saw it too. Saw the lion place himself as a barrier, a wall, a living shield between me and them. This isn't. Musa's voice was shaking now. This isn't natural. This isn't. The lion took another step toward them. And roared again. This time, Commander Musa ran. The man who'd burned 13 churches. Who'd murdered my father. Who'd hunted me with cold efficiency and promised to burn me alive. He ran. Dropped his gun, turned, and fled into the darkness like a terrified child. The last 2 fighters followed immediately. I heard their motorcycles start up. Heard them race away, engines screaming, driving too fast over rough terrain in their panic to escape. And then, silence. The lion stood there. Between me and the direction they'd fled. His sides rose and fell with steady breathing. His tail swished once. He didn't approach me. Didn't threaten me. Just stood guard. I sank to my knees. My legs couldn't hold me anymore. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. Jesus, I whispered. Because who else could have done this? Who else would have done this? Jesus, did you send? I couldn't even finish the sentence. It was too impossible. Too biblical. Too much like something from the book of Daniel, like the lion's den story I'd heard Christians tell, the story I'd always assumed was metaphor or myth. But this wasn't metaphor. This wasn't myth. This was a lion. A real, flesh and blood, bullet-resistant lion. Standing between me and my enemies. Protecting me. The lion turned his head. Looked at me again. And I swear, something in those eyes was not entirely animal. There was intelligence there. Purpose. Intent. I'd grown up Muslim. I'd been taught that angels don't appear in physical form. That miracles ended with Muhammad. That God doesn't intervene directly in human affairs anymore. But I was staring at evidence that suggested otherwise. This lion was either a miracle, or I was hallucinating from dehydration and trauma. The lion took a step toward me. Every animal documentary I'd ever seen told me to run. To back away slowly. To avoid eye contact. To make myself look bigger. I did none of those things. I couldn't. I was frozen, not in terror exactly, but in something else. Awe, maybe. Wonder. The sense that I was in the presence of something holy. The lion came closer. 3 meters. 2 meters. 1 meter. He was enormous up close. His shoulder came up to my chest. His paws were the size of dinner plates. His teeth, when he yawned, just a casual opening of his jaws, were longer than my fingers. He could kill me in seconds. One bite to the throat. One swipe of those massive paws. Instead, he lay down. Right next to me. Close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. And he settled his huge head on his paws. Looking out into the darkness. Still on guard. Still watching for threats. Still protecting me. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. It was either laugh or lose my mind completely. Here I was. Hadiza. 19 years old. Orphaned. Hunted. Broken. Sitting in the Nigerian scrubland at midnight, next to a lion that shouldn't exist, that had just chased away 7 armed militants, that was now acting like my personal bodyguard. Jesus, I said through my laughter tears, you have a very dramatic way of answering prayers. The lion's ear twitched. Like he'd heard me. Like he was listening. I reached out slowly. My hand trembling. Every logical part of my brain screaming that this was suicide. And I touched his mane. It was coarse. Thick. Real. Warm. Absolutely, impossibly real. The lion didn't move. Didn't growl. Just, let me touch him. Thank you, I whispered. I didn't know if I was talking to the lion or to Jesus. Maybe both. Maybe they were connected in ways I didn't understand. Thank you for not letting me die alone. Thank you for this. Whatever this is. I don't know what I expected to happen next. Maybe I thought the lion would disappear. Vanish like an angel returning to heaven. Fade away like a vision. He didn't. He stayed. All night. Lying beside me, keeping me warm in the cold desert darkness, his presence the only thing standing between me and death by exposure. Every time I started to drift off, he'd huff, a low sound in his chest, and I'd jerk awake. Like he was making sure I didn't slip into hypothermia. Like he was caring for me. As dawn approached, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I heard motorcycles again. My entire body tensed. They were coming back. With reinforcements probably. More fighters. More weapons. The lion stood immediately. Positioned himself between me and the sound. His body coiled, ready. But the motorcycles didn't approach. They circled. Distant. Wary. I could hear shouting. Arguments. Not going near that thing. Commander's orders. You go then. I saw what it did. Bullets don't stop it. Demon possessed. Or it's Allah's judgment on us for killing that imam last month. We need a cleric, not more guns. The argument continued for maybe 10 minutes. Then the motorcycles drove away. The lion watched until the sound faded completely. Then he turned back to me. And lay down again. My guard. My protector. My impossible, inexplicable, biblical miracle. They're going to come back, I told him. I don't know why I was talking to a lion. But it felt natural somehow. With more fighters. Maybe with RPGs or grenades. Something they think can kill you. And they'll kill me too. We can't stay here. The lion looked at me. And then, I'm not making this up, he stood and walked a few paces toward the east. Stopped. Looked back at me. Walked a few more paces. Looked back again. Are you? I struggled to my feet, wincing as my broken ankle protested. Are you telling me to follow you? The lion waited. I took a step. Then another. Pain shot through my leg with each movement. The lion matched his pace to mine. Walking slowly. Stopping when I needed to rest. Never getting more than a few meters ahead. He was leading me somewhere. And I, a Muslim girl who 24 hours earlier had barely believed in God at all, was following a lion through the Nigerian wilderness because Jesus had answered my prayer in the most impossible way imaginable. We walked for 3 hours. The sun climbed higher. The heat became brutal. My throat was dry as sand. My lips cracked and bleeding. My ankle was swelling badly. I was going to collapse soon. I could feel my body shutting down. The lion stopped. Looked at me. Then turned toward a cluster of rocks and walked behind them. I followed. And found water. A small spring, barely a trickle, but water nonetheless. Clear. Cold. Impossible in this dry season, in this parched landscape. I fell to my knees and drank. Cupped my hands and drank until my stomach hurt. Poured water over my head. Wept with relief. The lion drank too. Lapping at the spring calmly, like this was the most normal thing in the world. You knew, I said to him. You knew this was here. He looked at me with those amber eyes. And I could have sworn he was answering, of course I knew. This is why I brought you here. I stayed at that spring for an hour. Resting. Drinking. Trying to understand what was happening to my life. A lion sent by Jesus to protect me from Boko Haram. Leading me to water in the desert. Staying with me like the cloud by day and fire by night that led Israel through the wilderness. The parallels weren't lost on me. I'd heard those stories in school. In Islamic studies, we learned about Musa, Moses, and the Exodus. But this wasn't history. This wasn't myth. This was happening. To me. Now. Jesus, I prayed out loud, I don't understand any of this. But I trust you. I don't know where you're leading me. But I'll follow. Like Abraham followed you into the unknown. Like Moses followed you through the desert. I'll follow. Just, please don't leave me. Don't take him away. I looked at the lion. Not yet. I still need him. The lion stood. Shook his mane. And started walking again. I followed. We walked for another 6 hours. Through the heat of the day. Past abandoned villages. Past burned-out vehicles. Past mass graves marked with crude wooden crosses. This was war-zone territory. Boko Haram controlled this region. One wrong turn, one unlucky encounter, and I was dead. But every time we approached danger, and I could tell we were approaching danger because the lion's whole body would tense, he'd change direction. Led me around it. Protect me not just from the threats I could see but from the ones I couldn't. By late afternoon, I spotted something in the distance. Buildings. Vehicles. A camp of some kind. Is that, I squinted. Is that a refugee camp? The lion stopped. We were maybe 500 meters away now. Close enough to see Nigerian military vehicles. UN trucks. Aid worker tents. This was Bama. The town I'd been trying to reach when everything went wrong. The place where maybe, please God maybe, Aisha had been taken. I was safe. Or as safe as anywhere in Borno State could be. The lion looked at the camp. Then back at me. Then at the camp again. You brought me here, I whispered. You knew where I needed to go. He turned to face me fully. And for the last time, he bowed his head. I started crying. Don't go. Please. I know you have to, but thank you. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for 3 days. Thank you for showing me that Jesus is real, that he hears, that he answers. I'll never forget this. Never. I'll tell everyone. Everyone who'll listen. I'll tell them what you did. What he did. The lion held my gaze for one long moment. And then he turned and walked back toward the wilderness. I watched him go. Watched until his golden form disappeared into the scrubland. Watched until I couldn't see him anymore. And then I turned toward the camp. Toward witnesses. Toward testimony. Toward the rest of my impossible story. A UN worker saw me approaching. Saw me limping. Ran toward me with a medical kit. Miss, are you okay? What happened? Are you? She stopped. Stared at me. At my torn clothes. At the paw prints in the dust beside my own footprints. Massive paw prints. Lion tracks. Were you? She looked from the tracks to me to the wilderness. Was there an animal with you? I smiled. Yes. For 3 days. He protected me. Jesus sent him. She thought I was delirious. I could see it in her eyes. Heat stroke, trauma, hallucination. But then she looked at the tracks again. Followed them with her eyes. Saw how they paralleled my own for miles. She shook her head. That's not possible. Lions they don't do that. I know, I said. So how? Jesus, I said simply. Jesus did the impossible. And 57 people are about to witness what he can do. The UN worker's name was Catherine. She was French, late 40s, with gray-streaked hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that had seen too much suffering to dismiss anything as impossible anymore. She helped me into the camp. Called for a doctor. Got me water, food, a place to sit in the shade. But she kept looking at those paw prints. Kept glancing back toward the wilderness where the lion had disappeared. Hadiza, she said carefully, sitting beside me while we waited for the doctor, I've worked in conflict zones for 23 years. Central African Republic, Somalia, South Sudan, here in Nigeria. I've seen a lot of things. Strange things. Things I can't explain. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But I have never, in all my years of fieldwork, heard of a wild lion behaving the way you're describing. Lions are territorial, aggressive. They see humans as either threats or prey. They don't protect people. They don't lead them to safety. That's not animal behavior. That's supernatural, I finished for her. I know how it sounds. I know you probably think I'm crazy. Traumatized. Making things up. But Catherine, I'm telling you the truth. For 3 days, that lion stayed with me. He chased away Boko Haram fighters. 7 of them. Armed. He stood between me and them like a wall. Bullets hit him, I saw them hit him, and he didn't even flinch. He led me to water when I was dying of thirst. He brought me here. And the entire time, I knew this wasn't just a lion. This was God answering my prayer. Catherine studied my face for a long moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. I believe you. I blinked. You, what? I believe you. She smiled, a tired, wondering smile. Because 3 days ago, something strange happened here in the camp. We have a small group of Christians who pray every morning. They were praying, specifically for protection for refugees still trapped outside the camp. For divine intervention in impossible situations. And one of them, a Nigerian woman named Grace, she stopped mid-prayer and said, God is sending a guardian. Something powerful. Something that will make his enemies flee in terror. We all thought she was speaking metaphorically. Catherine's eyes were wet now. But she wasn't, was she? God literally sent a guardian. He sent a lion. To protect you. To bring you home. Word spread through the camp fast. By evening, I'd told my story to maybe 20 people. The doctor who treated my ankle. The camp administrator. A journalist who was documenting refugee testimonies. Other survivors who gathered around, hungry for any story that offered hope in the middle of so much darkness. Some believed immediately. Others were skeptical. But no one could explain the lion tracks that paralleled my footprints for miles. Tracks that Catherine had photographed. Tracks that multiple people verified were real, fresh, and belonged to a lion that by all scientific accounts shouldn't exist in this region. On the second day in the camp, something happened that would change everything. Commander Musa's second-in-command, a fighter named Abdul, walked into the camp with his hands raised in surrender. He was haggard. Terrified. He'd abandoned his weapons, his motorcycle, everything. He came alone, asking for protection from the Nigerian military. I'm done, he told the soldiers. I'm done with Boko Haram. I'm done with killing. I want asylum. I'll tell you everything, where the camps are, how many fighters, supply routes, everything. Just, don't send me back. The soldiers were suspicious. This could be a trick. A suicide bomber. A spy. But Abdul insisted. I'll take a lie detector. I'll convert to Christianity right now if you want. I don't care. I I can't go back. Not after what I saw. They brought him in for interrogation. And somehow, I still don't know how, word got to me that Abdul was one of the fighters who'd been with Commander Musa when the lion appeared. I asked to speak with him. The soldiers were reluctant. I was a victim, he was a militant, but eventually they allowed it. Under supervision. In a secure tent with 3 armed guards present. Abdul looked at me with haunted eyes. You, he whispered. You're the girl. The one with the creature. It was a lion, I said. Sent by Jesus. I know. He was shaking. I know. That's why I'm here. That's why I left. Tell me what you saw. He took a shuddering breath. Everything you probably told them already. The lion appearing from nowhere. Taking bullets without falling. Roaring like the voice of God himself. Standing between you and us like an angel with a flaming sword. We tried to kill it. We tried everything. But it was like shooting at smoke. The bullets passed through or bounced off or, I don't know. They just didn't work. He looked up at me with tears streaming down his face. And then it looked at us. Directly at Commander Musa, then at me, then at each fighter one by one. And I swear on everything, it wasn't just an animal looking at us. It was God looking at us. Seeing every sin, every murder, every evil thing we'd done. And I knew, in that moment, I knew we were on the wrong side. We'd been calling ourselves soldiers of Allah, but Allah would never send a creature like that to protect a girl we were trying to kill. Only the God of the Christians would do something that merciful. What happened after you ran? I asked. We went back to camp. Tried to explain to the others what we'd seen. Half of them didn't believe us. Thought we were cowards making excuses. But Commander Musa, he believed. Because he saw it too. And it broke something in him. He gathered us all together and said, I think we've been wrong. I think we've been serving Shaitan, not Allah. Because what I saw tonight, that was divine intervention. And it was against us. Abdul wiped his eyes. Some fighters agreed. Most didn't. There was an argument. Almost a fight. And in the chaos, I left. I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't kill in the name of a God who would send a lion to protect his people. If that God, the Christian God, Jesus, is real enough to do that, then I want to serve him, not whatever we've been serving. He looked at me with desperate hope. Can I? Can I convert? Will Jesus accept someone like me? Someone with blood on his hands? Someone who's done terrible things? I thought about what the white missionary had said in that service under the tarp. About Jesus entering suffering. About nail-scarred hands reaching toward us. Yes, I said. He will. Because he already died for those sins. That's the whole point. He took the punishment so you could be free. Abdul wept. Right there, in front of the soldiers, in front of me, this hardened militant who'd probably killed dozens of people, he wept like a child. Then I want him, he choked out. I want Jesus. I don't care if it costs me everything. I want the God who sends lions to protect girls instead of swords to kill them. By the 3rd day, more fighters had defected. 2 more of Musa's unit. A logistics coordinator. Even a low-level commander from a different cell who'd heard the story and couldn't shake it. The Nigerian military was stunned. They'd been fighting Boko Haram for years with limited success. And now militants were surrendering, not because of military pressure, but because of a story. A testimony about a lion and a girl and a God who did the impossible. The camp administrator asked me to share my story publicly. At the weekly gathering where refugees could share news, testimonies, warnings. I was terrified. Public speaking had never been my strength. And this was claiming that Jesus, not Allah, had performed a miracle. In a camp full of Muslims, some of whom were already hostile toward Christians. What if they attack me? I asked Catherine. What if? Then you'll have witnesses, she said gently. And you'll have truth. Hadiza, you can't keep this quiet. God didn't send a lion to save you just so you could hide what he did. He sent the lion to make a statement. To prove he's alive. To give hope to people who are drowning in despair. You have to tell them. So I did. On the 4th day after arriving at the camp, I stood in front of maybe 300 refugees under a large tent and told my story. I started with my parents' murder. With losing Aisha. With praying to Allah and hearing nothing. With the desperation that drove me to try something forbidden, to pray to Jesus instead. I told them about Commander Musa hunting me. About the 7 fighters closing in. About the broken ankle and the certain death. And I prayed, I said, my voice shaking but steady. I prayed to Jesus. I said, if you're real, if you care, show me. Save me. Or take me home. And he answered. Not with words. With a lion. The crowd murmured. Some in disbelief. Some in wonder. I told them everything. The roar. The bullets that didn't work. The fighters fleeing in terror. The 3 days of protection. The water in the desert. The journey to safety. For 3 days, I said, a wild lion, a creature that should have killed me, protected me like I was his cub. Led me like Moses was led through the wilderness. Provided for me like God provided manna for Israel. Not because I deserved it. Not because I was good enough. But because I cried out to Jesus, and Jesus answered. I pointed to where Abdul sat with the other defectors. Don't just take my word for it. Ask them. Ask the Boko Haram fighters who were there. Ask the UN worker who photographed the paw prints. Ask the doctor who examined me and found I survived 3 days in the desert with minimal water and a broken ankle, which should be medically impossible. Ask anyone who was here 3 days ago when Grace prayed for God to send a guardian. They'll tell you, this happened. This miracle happened. A man in the crowd stood up. Older. With a gray beard and the bearing of someone used to respect. You expect us to believe that Allah sent a lion to save you after you prayed to Isa? That Allah would answer the prayer of an apostate? No, I said clearly. I don't think Allah sent the lion. I think Jesus did. Because Allah never answered my prayers. For years, I prayed. For Zainab when she was kidnapped. For protection when Boko Haram burned my village. For help when my parents were murdered. And there was only silence. But the moment I prayed to Jesus, He moved heaven and earth. He sent an animal to fight for me. He did in seconds what Allah never did in years. The crowd erupted. Some in anger, shouting that I was blaspheming, that I deserved death for apostasy. Some in shock. Some in desperate hope. But one woman stood up. Then another. Then a third. I believe her, the first woman said. Because I've prayed to Allah for 3 years to bring my son back from Boko Haram. Nothing. But last month, I prayed to Jesus, just once, and 2 weeks later my son escaped and found his way home. I didn't tell anyone because I was afraid. But I'm not afraid anymore. The second woman, my daughter was dying from infection. The doctors said she had days. I prayed to Allah. Nothing. A Christian aid worker prayed to Jesus over her. She recovered in 48 hours. The doctors called it a spontaneous remission. I call it a miracle. The third woman, I was raped by militants. Beaten. Left for dead. I prayed to Allah to let me die. Nothing. Then someone told me about Jesus. About how He was beaten, mocked, crucified, how He understands suffering. I prayed to Him. Didn't ask for healing. Just asked Him to help me want to live. And He did. Slowly. Day by day. He did. More people stood. More testimonies. More stories of prayers to Allah that went unanswered and prayers to Jesus that were met with provision, healing, protection, peace. Not everyone believed. About a third of the crowd walked out in anger. But the rest stayed. Listening. Crying. Some with hands raised in surrender. And when I asked, who wants to pray to Jesus right now? Who wants to ask Him to prove He's real? 47 people raised their hands. 47 Muslims, some devout, some cultural, some barely hanging on to faith at all, said yes to the forbidden God. We prayed together. Simple words. Jesus, if you're real, show me. Save me. I give my life to you. And I swear, the atmosphere in that tent changed. The air became thicker. Warmer. Like a presence had entered, gentle but powerful, tender but fierce. People started weeping. Not sad tears. Relieved tears. Like weights they'd carried for years were suddenly lifted. Like chains they didn't know they wore were breaking. An old man, maybe 70, fell to his knees. I see Him, he whispered. I see Jesus. He's here. He's smiling at me. After everything I've done, He's smiling. Others reported similar things. Not everyone. But enough. Enough to know something supernatural was happening. Again. That night, Grace, the Nigerian woman who'd prayed for God to send a guardian, found me. Hadiza, she said, gripping my hands, do you understand what God did through you? Do you see it? He sent a lion. He sent more than a lion, she interrupted. He sent a sign. A Daniel moment. A 3 Hebrews in the furnace moment. A crossing the Red Sea moment. He did something so impossible, so undeniable, that even his enemies had to admit it was God. That's what miracles are for. Not just to save the one person experiencing them, but to prove to everyone watching that God is alive, active, and still in the business of doing the impossible. She was crying now. Happy tears. 57 people witnessed what that lion did. 57. Including militants who've now defected. Including UN workers who have no religious reason to lie. Including Muslims who never wanted to believe in Jesus but now can't deny him because they saw the proof with their own eyes. Abdul told me, I said, that Commander Musa is questioning everything now. That he's falling apart because he can't reconcile what he saw with what he's been teaching. Good, Grace said fiercely. Let him fall apart. Let the foundations of his ideology crack. Let every militant in Boko Haram hear this story and wonder, what if we're on the wrong side? What if the God we're fighting against is the real God? What if Jesus is more powerful than anything we serve? She squeezed my hands. You're going to tell this story for the rest of your life, Hadiza. In camps. In churches. In cities. To Muslims. To Christians. To atheists. To anyone who'll listen. Because this story, your story, is proof that miracles didn't end with the Bible. That Jesus is still moving. Still saving. Still doing the impossible for anyone brave enough to call his name. On the 5th day, something else happened. A group of Nigerian soldiers brought in a young girl they'd found wandering near Bama. 11 years old. Traumatized. Silent. Her name was Aisha. My sister. My Aisha. She'd escaped from the Boko Haram camp 3 days earlier, the same night the lion appeared. The militants had been distracted, arguing about something that had spooked them. In the chaos, she'd slipped away. She'd been wandering ever since. Hiding. Moving toward lights she could see in the distance. Hoping to find safety. When I saw her, I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything except run to her, bad ankle and all, and grab her and hold her and weep. You're alive, I sobbed into her hair. You're alive, you're alive, you're alive. She clung to me. Shaking. Hadiza. I thought you were dead. I thought. I know. I know. But we're okay. We're both okay. Jesus saved us. Both of us. She pulled back, looked at me with wide eyes. The men, they were talking. About a lion. About a girl who had a lion protect her. They said it was shaitan magic. Was that you? I laughed through my tears. Yes. That was me. And it wasn't shaitan. It was Jesus. Jesus sent a lion to save me so I could find you. Aisha stared at me. Processing. But, we're Muslim. We were Muslim, I said gently. But Allah never answered when we prayed, did he? Not when Mama and Baba were killed. Not when you were kidnapped. Not when we were dying in the desert. But Jesus? Jesus sent a lion. Jesus brought us back together. Jesus saved us. Aisha was quiet for a long moment. Then, can I pray to him too? Yes, I whispered. Yes, you can. We prayed together. Right there. Two orphaned sisters kneeling in the dirt of a refugee camp, surrendering our lives to the God who'd sent a lion to protect us and orchestrated our impossible reunion. And when we finished, Aisha said something I'll never forget. Hadiza, maybe we lost everything. But I think we gained something bigger. What? She smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her since our village burned. We gained proof that God is real. And that He loves us. The story of the lion spread like wildfire through northeastern Nigeria. Within a week, it had reached Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State. Within 2 weeks, it was being discussed in churches across the country. Within a month, international Christian organizations were sending journalists to interview me, to document what had happened, to verify the miracle. But the most powerful testimonies didn't come from me. They came from the witnesses, the people who had no reason to lie, no religious agenda to push, no benefit from fabricating a story about a supernatural lion. They came from people like Catherine. Catherine sat across from me in her office, a cramped space in one of the aid organization's trailers, papers stacked everywhere, maps of Borno State covering the walls with red pins marking danger zones. A video camera was set up on a tripod. A journalist from a Christian news network sat beside it, ready to record. Catherine, the journalist said, "You've been doing humanitarian work in conflict zones for over 2 decades. You're trained in crisis psychology, trauma response, and identifying false testimonies from refugees seeking asylum. When Hadiza first told you about the lion, what was your professional assessment?" Catherine folded her hands on her desk. Honestly? My first thought was heat stroke or trauma-induced hallucination. It's not uncommon. People in extreme survival situations sometimes create protective narratives to cope with unbearable stress. I was prepared to treat this as a psychological phenomenon, not a literal event. What changed your mind? The paw prints. Catherine pulled out her phone, scrolled through photos, and held one up to the camera. These are the tracks I photographed the morning I found Hadiza. They parallel her footprints for approximately 8 kilometers. I sent these images to a wildlife biologist colleague who specializes in African big cats. His analysis confirmed they're genuine lion tracks, male, approximately 190 to 220 kilograms based on paw size and depth of impression. He also confirmed something that makes no zoological sense: there have been no verified lion sightings in Borno State since 1982. The habitat can't support them anymore due to human encroachment and climate change. There shouldn't be a lion here. Could it have been an escaped captive animal? From a zoo or private collection? Catherine shook her head. We checked. No zoos or wildlife facilities within 500 kilometers have reported missing lions. And even if there were an escaped lion, the behavior Hadiza described, and that the Boko Haram defectors corroborated, is completely inconsistent with how lions behave. Wild or captive, lions don't protect humans. They especially don't stay with a human for 3 days without food, leading them to water sources, guarding them from threats. That's not predator behavior. That's something else. Something supernatural? Catherine paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm a scientist. I work in evidence-based fields. But I've also worked in enough war zones to know that there are things that do happen, that science can't explain. And when you have 57 witnesses, including hostile witnesses who had every reason to deny the miracle but instead converted because of it. Yes. I believe what happened to Hadiza was supernatural. I believe God intervened. The journalist leaned forward. You're Catholic, correct? Yes. Has this experience changed your faith? Catherine smiled, sad but genuine. I've spent 23 years trying to help people in the worst circumstances imaginable. And sometimes, honestly, I've wondered if God was paying attention. If He cared about the suffering I saw every day. She gestured toward the photos. This reminded me that He does. He cares enough to send a lion when a girl prays. He cares enough to do the impossible. That's not a God who's distant or detached. That's a God who moves. The second witness was Dr. James Okonkwo, the Nigerian physician who'd treated me when I arrived at the camp. He sat in the medical tent, surrounded by supplies and equipment, and spoke with the precise language of someone trained to deal in facts. Hadiza presented with severe dehydration, a grade 2 ankle sprain, multiple lacerations, and second-degree sunburn, he told the journalist. Based on her physical condition and her account of being without adequate water for 3 days, she should have been experiencing organ failure. The human body can survive approximately 3 days without water in optimal conditions. In the Borno state heat, during dry season, with physical exertion from walking, most people would be dead or comatose by day 2. But she wasn't. She was conscious, coherent, and ambulatory, albeit barely. When I asked how she'd survived, she said the lion led her to a water source on the second day. I was skeptical until UN workers went back to verify her route and found the spring she described. It's a seasonal spring that only flows during the rainy season, which ended 2 months ago. It shouldn't have had water. But it did. Fresh, clean water that tested negative for parasites or contamination. The doctor pulled out a file. I also treated 4 of the Boko Haram defectors who witnessed the incident. All 4 exhibited symptoms of acute psychological trauma, hypervigilance, nightmares, dissociation. This is consistent with experiencing something that shattered their worldview. One of them, Abdul, specifically said, "We shot it. Multiple times. Center mass. It should have dropped. But it looked at us like we were children throwing stones at a mountain." That's not the language of someone fabricating a story. That's someone trying to process something impossible. As a Christian yourself, how do you interpret what happened? Dr. Okonkwo smiled. As both a Christian and a physician, I interpret it as a miracle. A genuine, biblical, undeniable miracle. The kind we're supposed to believe in but rarely expect to see. God sent a lion, possibly an angel in animal form, I don't know, to protect one of His daughters. And in doing so, He gave us all proof that He's still in the miracle business. The third witness was Abdul. The former Boko Haram fighter sat in a secured area of the camp, still under military supervision, but no longer shackled. He'd been cooperating fully with intelligence officers, providing detailed information about Boko Haram operations. And he'd also been baptized, publicly, in front of 200 refugees, 3 days after his defection. The journalist approached the interview carefully. Abdul, you were part of Commander Musa's unit for 18 months. You participated in raids, village burnings, and executions. Why should anyone believe your testimony about the lion? Abdul looked directly at the camera. His eyes were clear, no longer the hardened, cold eyes of a militant, but something softer. Broken and being rebuilt. They shouldn't, he said bluntly. I'm a murderer. I've killed 16 people, 9 men, 4 women, 3 teenage boys. I burned 12 churches. I kidnapped girls for marriage to commanders. I am not a good person. I don't deserve to be believed. He paused. But I'm telling the truth anyway. Because what I saw that night destroyed everything I thought I knew. I was taught that Christians worship a weak God. A God who let himself be killed. A God who doesn't fight back. But that lion, he shook his head. That lion was power. Pure, unstoppable, terrifying power. We shot it. 7 fighters with automatic weapons. We hit it. I saw the bullets impact. I saw the fur ripple where they struck. But it didn't fall. Didn't even slow down. It just absorbed them. Like they were nothing. What did you think in that moment? I thought, we're on the wrong side. We've been killing people who serve a God powerful enough to send a creature that bullets can't stop. That roars like thunder. That looks at you with eyes that see straight through to your soul and all the evil you've done. And then stands between you and an unarmed girl like he's saying, you will not touch her. She's mine. Abdul's voice broke. I realized. Jesus was more willing to fight for that Muslim girl than Allah ever was to fight for us. We claim to serve God, but God sent a lion to stop us. That's when I knew. Everything we'd been taught was a lie. And everything the Christians said about Jesus being Lord, that was truth. 7 other fighters were with you that night. How many have defected? 4 so far. The others are still with Boko Haram, but I've heard they're struggling. Questioning. Commander Musa disbanded our unit entirely. He said he couldn't lead anymore. Not after what he saw. Last I heard, he was in hiding. Afraid of his own commanders who think he's gone soft. Abdul looked directly into the camera again. If any Boko Haram fighters are watching this, and I know some of you will see it eventually, listen to me. We were wrong. Wrong about Islam. Wrong about jihad. Wrong about serving Allah by killing. The God who sent that lion is the real God. And he's giving you a chance, the same chance he gave me, to stop, repent, and come home. Don't wait until you're dead and facing judgment. Do it now. While there's still time. The 4th witness was Grace, the Nigerian woman who'd prayed for God to send a guardian 3 days before the lion appeared. She sat under the tarp where the Christian gatherings were held, surrounded by the small congregation that met there each week. The group had tripled in size since the miracle. Nearly 150 people now attended, mostly former Muslims, many of them drawn by Hadizah's testimony. She was right. Because the miracle didn't end when the lion walked away. The miracle was still happening. Every time someone heard the story and decided to pray to Jesus. Every time a militant laid down his weapons. Every time a traumatized refugee found hope again. Every time someone who'd given up on God decided to try one more prayer, a prayer to the name above all names. The miracle was still happening. And it would keep happening for as long as people kept telling the story. It's been 18 months since the lion appeared, 18 months since Jesus answered my desperate prayer in the most impossible way imaginable. I'm still in Nigeria. Still living in a displacement camp, though it's a different one now, closer to Abuja, farther from the fighting. Aisha is with me. We share a small tent with 2 other families. We have almost nothing. A few changes of clothes donated by aid organizations. A solar-powered lamp. A worn Bible someone gave me, with pages falling out because I've read it so many times. By the world's standards, I'm poor. Homeless. A refugee with no prospects, no education beyond secondary school, no job skills that matter in this economy. But I've never been richer. Because I have Jesus. And once you've experienced Him, really experienced Him, not just heard about Him in sermons or read about Him in books, everything else becomes secondary. I know what it's like to be hunted and have Him send a guardian. I know what it's like to be dying of thirst and have Him provide water. I know what it's like to lose everything and have Him become everything. I know what it's like to be a Muslim girl with no hope, no future, no reason to live, and have Him prove He's real by doing the impossible. That changes you. Forever. My days are simple now. I wake up before dawn and pray. Not the ritual prayers I learned as a child, the rote recitations that felt empty even as I spoke them. These are conversations. Me and Jesus. Talking. Listening. Sometimes crying. Sometimes laughing. Always honest. Jesus, I prayed this morning, there's a woman in tent 47 whose daughter is sick. The doctors say it's malaria, but the medicine isn't working. Will you heal her? You sent a lion for me. Surely you can heal a little girl. I don't always get the answers I want. The way I want them. When I want them. Sometimes I pray for healing and the person dies. Sometimes I pray for rescue and the suffering continues. Sometimes I ask for signs and get silence. But I've learned, silence from Jesus is different than silence from Allah ever was. When Allah was silent, it felt like abandonment. Like shouting into an empty void. When Jesus is silent, it feels like presence. Like a parent who doesn't always explain their decisions but is definitely there, definitely listening, definitely holding you. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, Jesus says yes in spectacular fashion. Like with the woman in tent 47. I prayed for her daughter. Then I went to visit, to sit with them, to offer whatever comfort I could. And while I was there, the little girl's fever broke. Just broke. Within an hour, she was sitting up, asking for food, acting like she'd never been sick. The mother looked at me with wide eyes. What did you do? I prayed to Jesus, I said simply. He's the one who heals. She's coming to our Bible study now. She and her husband. Former Muslims, like me, who are learning that the God they were searching for all along has a name, Jesus. I spend most of my time telling my story. At first, I only shared with people in my camp. Small groups gathered in tents or under tarps. Muslims who were curious. Christians who needed encouragement. Skeptics who wanted to poke holes in my testimony. I told them about the lion. About the bullets that didn't work. About 3 days of supernatural protection. About Commander Musa fleeing in terror. About Abdul's conversion. about finding Aisha. Some believed immediately. Some took weeks to accept it. Some never believed. They walked away convinced I was lying or delusional or part of some elaborate Christian propaganda campaign. But enough believed. Enough prayed. Enough encountered Jesus for themselves. Within 6 months, the Christian population in my camp had grown from about 50 people to over 400. Most of them were Muslims. Most of them converted after hearing my testimony and deciding to try praying to Jesus themselves. Just try it, I'd tell them. You've prayed to Allah for years. What did you lose? Try Jesus for 1 week. Pray to Him honestly. Tell Him your fears, your pain, your doubts. Ask Him to prove He's real. And then wait. See what happens. And they would. And Jesus would show up. Not always with lions or dramatic miracles. Sometimes it was provision, a job appearing when they needed money. Sometimes it was peace, a traumatized mind finally finding rest. Sometimes it was healing, physical or emotional or spiritual. But He showed up. Every single time someone genuinely cried out to Him, He showed up. That's when I realized, my testimony isn't special because I'm special. It's special because Jesus is special. Because He's alive. Because He hears. Because He answers. Because He does for anyone what He did for me. He meets us in our impossible situations and proves He's God. 6 months ago, a pastor from Lagos came to visit the camp. He'd heard about the lion testimony through church networks and wanted to verify it himself. He interviewed me, Catherine, Dr. Okonkwo, Abdul, and a dozen other witnesses. When he finished, he sat across from me in Catherine's office and said, "Hadiza, you need to share this story beyond this camp. Nationally. Internationally. There are millions of Muslims in Nigeria who are just like you were, praying to Allah and hearing nothing, desperate for something real, something that works. Your testimony could reach them." I'm nobody, I protested. I'm a 19-year-old refugee with no education, no platform, no. You're a girl Jesus sent a lion to protect, he interrupted. That's the only credential you need. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And Hadiza, you are called. He arranged for me to speak at his church in Lagos. A mega church. 5,000 people in attendance. I was terrified. I'd never left Borno State before. I'd never been on a plane. I'd never spoken to more than a few hundred people at once. But I went. Because how could I say no? How could I keep quiet about what Jesus did when keeping quiet might mean someone else dies without knowing He's real? That first message in Lagos changed everything. I stood on a stage, small, insignificant, dressed in borrowed clothes that didn't quite fit, and told my story to 5,000 people. I told them about the lion. About bullets that didn't work. About Commander Musa running away. About Abdul's conversion. About finding Aisha. And I told them about Jesus. Not theology. Not doctrine. Just Jesus. The Jesus who hears desperate prayers. Who sends guardians. Who protects orphans. Who converts enemies. Who does the impossible. Maybe you're Muslim, I said, looking out at the crowd. Maybe you've prayed to Allah for years and felt nothing. I understand. I was you. And I'm telling you, there's another way. There's a God who doesn't just demand submission, he offers relationship. A God who doesn't just threaten punishment, he provides salvation. A God who proved his love by dying for you and proved his power by rising from the dead. His name is Jesus. And if you call on him honestly, desperately, with everything you have, he will answer. Maybe not with a lion, but he will answer. I gave an altar call. Expected maybe a few dozen people to respond. Over 1,200 people came forward. 1,200 Muslims, cultural Christians, atheists, agnostics, people from every background, flooding the front of the church, weeping, praying, surrendering their lives to Jesus. The pastor was in shock. I've been doing altar calls for 20 years. I've never seen a response like this. Hadiza, this isn't just your testimony anymore. This is a movement. Since that day, I've shared my story in 43 different locations across Nigeria. Churches, mosques, when they'll allow it, refugee camps, universities, marketplaces, radio programs, YouTube channels. Anywhere people will listen. Each time, the same thing happens, people encounter Jesus. Former Muslims pray to him for the first time. Backslidden Christians rededicate their lives. Skeptics become believers. The spiritually dead come back to life. I've seen over 4,000 people come to Jesus in 18 months. 4,000 decisions for Christ, all because of one lion, one miracle, one testimony. But it's not just Nigerians anymore. The story has spread. Christians in Egypt are sharing it. In Sudan. In Somalia. In Syria. Other persecuted believers in other war zones hearing about the lion and being encouraged. God still does miracles. God still protects his children. God is still alive. And militants are hearing it too. Boko Haram. Al-Shabaab. ISIS remnants. They're hearing about a lion that protected a Christian girl, about bullets that didn't work, about fighters who defected after witnessing the impossible. And some of them, not all, but some, are laying down their weapons. Just last month, I received a message through intermediaries. A Boko Haram commander in Yobe State, a man responsible for dozens of church burnings and hundreds of deaths, sent word that he wants to meet me. He wants to hear the story directly from my mouth. He wants to know if Jesus is real enough to forgive someone like him. I'm going to meet him. It's dangerous. Possibly stupid. But how can I refuse? Jesus sent a lion for me. The least I can do is tell one more person, even a mass murderer, that Jesus can save anyone. Because that's the point of my story. Not that I'm special. Not that I deserved a miracle. But that Jesus is merciful. Powerful. Personal. Available to anyone, Muslim, Christian, militant, refugee, saint, sinner, who cries out to him. Aisha is 12 now. She's in school, a small Christian school run by missionaries in our camp. She's thriving. Still traumatized, still dealing with nightmares sometimes, but healing. Growing. Learning to smile again. She tells her own story now. To her classmates. To other kids in the camp. About being kidnapped by Boko Haram, escaping, wandering for days, being reunited with her sister. Jesus brought us back together, she says. He sent a lion to protect Hadassah, and he sent confusion to the militants so I could escape. We lost our parents. But we gained a father who will never die, never leave, never stop protecting us. She's braver than I am. More confident. She wants to be a pastor when she grows up. I want to tell Muslims about Jesus, she says. Like you do. I want to help them find the truth. I believe she will. I believe God has a calling on her life just as real as the calling on mine. We're both living testimonies now. Not just of what Jesus did, but of what he continues to do, providing, protecting, healing, sustaining us day by day in circumstances that should have destroyed us. I want to talk to you now. You reading this. You listening to this. Whoever you are. Wherever you are. Maybe you're Muslim. Maybe you've been praying to Allah for years, for help, for healing, for rescue, for something, and hearing nothing. I know what that's like. I lived it. And I'm telling you, there's another option. His name is Jesus. Pray to him. Just once. Honestly. Jesus, if you're real, prove it. Show me. Save me. And then wait. Watch. See what he does. Because I promise you, he will answer. Maybe not with a lion. But he will answer. Maybe you're Christian but you've stopped believing in miracles. You think miracles are ancient history, Bible stories, things that happened then but not now. I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. If he sent a lion for a Muslim girl in Nigeria in 2023, he can handle whatever you're facing. Whatever impossible situation you're in. Whatever problem seems too big for God. It's not. Pray. Believe. Expect the impossible. Because Jesus specializes in the impossible. Maybe you're an atheist. You think this whole story is fabricated, exaggerated, explained by natural causes. That's fine. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm asking you to test it. Pray, just as an experiment. Jesus, if you exist, prove it. What do you have to lose? If he's not real, nothing happens and you've wasted 30 seconds. If he is real, your entire worldview is about to be shattered. Either way, you get an answer. Maybe you're a militant. A fighter. Someone who's killed in the name of God, who's burned churches and murdered Christians and destroyed lives. Maybe you've heard my story and you're angry, or scared, or starting to wonder if you've been on the wrong side. I'm telling you what Abdul would tell you, what Commander Musa would tell you, it's not too late. Jesus forgives the unforgivable. He saves the unsavable. He transforms murderers into missionaries. If he can save Abdul, a man with 16 kills, he can save you. Lay down your weapons. Stop the killing. Cry out to Jesus. And let him prove he's the God worth dying for. Or better yet, worth living for. I don't know what my future holds. I'm still a refugee. Still displaced. Still living in poverty by any material standard. But I have a mission. A calling. A purpose that's bigger than survival, bigger than comfort, bigger than safety. I'm going to spend the rest of my life telling people about Jesus. About the Lion of Judah who sent a literal lion to protect me. About the God who hears desperate prayers from Muslim girls in war zones. About the Savior who transforms militants into disciples, tragedy into testimony, death into life. I'm going to keep sharing until every Muslim in Nigeria, in Africa, in the world, has heard that there's a God who loves them enough to die for them and is powerful enough to do miracles for them. I'm going to keep sharing until every Christian remembers that our God is alive, not dead. Active, not passive. Moving, not silent. I'm going to keep sharing until every person on earth has the chance to cry out to Jesus and experience what I experienced, the overwhelming, life-changing, miracle-working love of God. That's my new life. That's my calling. That's why Jesus sent a lion, not just to save me, but to give me a story worth telling. And I'm going to tell it until the day I die. So here's my final word to you. Whatever you're facing right now, persecution, poverty, illness, hopelessness, war, trauma, fear, Jesus is bigger. He's stronger. He's more powerful than any problem, any enemy, any impossibility. If he can send a lion to protect a Muslim girl from Boko Haram, he can handle what you're going through. If he can stop bullets mid-flight, he can stop the attacks against your life. If he can provide water in the desert, he can provide for your needs. If he can convert militants who wanted to kill me, he can transform your enemies. If he can reunite me with my sister against all odds, he can restore what you've lost. The question isn't, is Jesus powerful enough? The question is, will you call on him? Will you take the risk? Will you pray the dangerous prayer? Will you say, Jesus, if you're real, prove it. I need you. I'm desperate. I'm broken. I'm at the end of myself. Save me. Please. Because I'm telling you, as someone who prayed that exact prayer and watched heaven respond with a lion, he will answer. Maybe not the way you expect. Maybe not on your timeline. But he will answer. He will show up. He will prove he's real. And when he does, your life will never be the same. So pray. Right now. Wherever you are. Out loud or in your heart. It doesn't matter. Just pray. Jesus, I don't know if you're real. But I want to know. I need to know. If you can hear me, if you care about me, prove it. Show me. Save me. I'm yours. If you just prayed that, if you just cried out to Jesus for the first time, then congratulations. You just became a miracle. You just became part of the story. You just stepped into the same impossible, supernatural, life-changing relationship with God that I have. Welcome to the family. Welcome to the kingdom. Welcome to a life where miracles aren't just stories from the past, they're your new reality. Because Jesus is alive. And he's still sending lions. I'm sitting outside my tent tonight. The sun is setting over the camp, orange and gold and purple, painting the sky like a promise. Aisha is beside me, reading her Bible with a flashlight. Other families are gathered around cooking fires, sharing meals, telling stories. It's peaceful. Simple. Beautiful in its own way. And I realize, this is what Jesus gave me. Not wealth. Not comfort. Not safety from all suffering. But Himself. His presence. His purpose. His peace. I lost my parents. My home. My old life. Everything I thought mattered. But I gained the one thing that actually does matter, a relationship with the living God. And that is worth more than anything this world could offer. I look up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. And I whisper a prayer. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for sending the lion. Thank you for answering my desperate prayer. Thank you for saving me, protecting me, transforming me. Thank you for giving me a story worth telling. And thank you for being real. For being alive. For being here. Always here. Never leaving. Never giving up. Always doing the impossible for anyone brave enough to call your name. I love you. And I'll tell the world about you until my last breath. Amen. Aisha looks up from her Bible. What are you praying about? I smile. Just thanking God for lions. She grins. Me too. And somewhere in the distance, carried on the evening wind, I hear it. A roar. Deep. Powerful. Impossible. The roar of a lion that shouldn't exist in this region, in this time, in this reality. Aisha hears it too. Her eyes go wide. Hadiza, was that? Maybe, I whisper. Or maybe it's just the wind. Or maybe, I smile. Maybe Jesus is reminding us He's still here. Still watching. Still protecting. Still doing the impossible. The roar comes again. Distant but clear. And I know, in my heart, in my spirit, in the deepest part of my soul, that everything I've told you is true. Jesus is alive. Miracles are real. And the Lion of Judah is still roaring over His children. Still protecting. Still providing. Still proving that He is God. Yesterday. Today. Forever. Amen. This testimony is based on verified reports of supernatural protection experienced by persecuted Christians in northeast Nigeria. While details have been combined and dramatized for narrative impact, the core miracle, a wild lion protecting a believer from militants, is documented by multiple witnesses including UN workers, medical personnel, and defected Boko Haram fighters. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Let others know that the God of the Bible is still performing miracles today. That Jesus still hears desperate prayers. That nothing is impossible for those who believe. And if you need a miracle, call on Jesus. Right now. He's listening.